Callum, how are you? Deeper sympathy.
Hi Shirley, how are you? Hi Joan.
Yeah.
You're the winner.
You win the prize. Get Rory. How lucky can you be?
Yeah?
That's not the whole bag. It's a lot more.
Alright. Kanda kurumbiza? Eh?
It's like
Kanda kurumbiza kupedza kunoku ya ndokuna kuya. Kanda nonoka vanzi ya tori za kutai. Alright. Kupedza. chadzimira chibva mukati mumaloto.
It's necessary.
Ita, come sit down. Yeah, it's free. It's free. No. Okay. Is that everybody? Okay. So it's a very informal funeral. Dad was a real hater of church ceremonies where somebody would stand up not knowing the person that they were talking about and then talk about someone they had no idea who they were. He was not a big fan of suits and a big fan of tackies, so in his honour I thought I would wear some tackies today. So it's not going to be a long ceremony, no hymns and prayers and so on and so forth. I'm going to do similar to what I did with my mother, really just Dad's life in pictures, ones that we could find. And when I'm finished with that, then Callum's going to stand up and have a few words, and that's really going to be it. It's not going to be anything overly formal and overly fancy. Okay. So, my father, he started life when we managed to find some very old pictures. He started off life, although Scottish and born of Scottish parents, he was born in India. His own parents moved out to the tea plantations of the then British Empire, and he was born in India with the classic colonial era, and maybe that was part of his reasoning to bringing us out to what was obviously then still a colony as Rhodesia. So it's rare that you can find photos so far back of but the schooling system in India wasn't of the standard that my grandparents wanted for him. So he left India to go to get brought up in Glasgow. So this is him at Glasgow Academy. And he spent most of his formative years probably being brought up by his aunt and uncle. Aunt and Uncle Wilfred were really strong influences on my father's life, and probably spent more time raising him than my grandparents did. It was a long trip out to India back in those days, so it was only on long holidays that he would be going out to India, which he still did, as he's seen here as a growing man, and then again on the Indian elephants back in the day. I believe he learned how to speak 3 dialects of Indian, which is as good as speaking 3 languages. Very good at languages. Went on to teach himself Swedish and when he was in Uppsala, Latin, French as well. I think 7 was what he claimed to speak, which probably one of the reasons I kicked back on even learning 1, and I got a U ungraded for my O-level French after spending 7 years studying French. He finished at Glasgow Academy, and rather than go to Glasgow University, he stepped up his game and came across to Edinburgh University. So this was as a young man at Edinburgh University. He then returned to do a post-grad or a specialist in anaesthesia. So he became an anaesthetist, and then he used that job and the ability to travel and work to travelled to such places as Barbados, where he did locums, and then Sweden. He spent a lot of time in Sweden, Uppsala, where he went as far as learning how to speak Swedish. And it appears from the photos he had a good time. This is life pre-marriage, we hope. Dad was always one who loved fun. He was always quick with a laugh, quick with a joke, good sense of humour, didn't mind being the centre of attention. And again, this, I believe, was a staff party put on by one of the hospitals. Full disclosure, he'd turn around and it'd say, "This is a very old shirt." He liked being by the pool. Anyway. So, yes, this is Dad by the pool. I remember attending my grandfather's funeral and Dad talking at the funeral. And I was still young at the time, 17, and he said, "I must thank my father for my genes." He thanked his father for his genes. Even at the time, it struck me as slightly odd. I was still very young, 17. I mean, I get the genes, but I thought I already have so many more things to thank my father for than something that he had no other choice than to pass on. He has done so much more for me. So it was actually at a poolside, maybe this explains why, that my father met my mother. They were in what was then Northern Rhodesia, Zambia. Dad was playing classical music by the pool. If I'd been there, I probably would have had a fight with him. But my mother went over and asked, "Do you have some other specific piece of music?" And that's how Mum and Dad met. So they met by a poolside, and Mum was a nurse, and this is Mum back in her day, and yes, they then started to date. Dad always still, the extrovert, but more crazy, acting the clown, as my mother would put it. Mum a bit more serious. But they got together and they got married. So just at the registrar's office, this is actually the first ever photograph of me. I'm in there. A love child is what they are called. But he did marry her, so I'm not a bastard. Although some would disagree. And this was me. This was my christening. And we don't know when this one was taken, but it was 1972 and I was October, so I could only have been 2 months old. I've trimmed that photo, by the way. I don't want to make the men in this room embarrassed. I'm not quite sure what was going on here, but we found the photo, and Dad must have experimented with a moustache at some point. Yeah, you can see why it stopped. And then along came Callum. So Callum was the next. Dad had taken up squash by then. He was a very avid squash player. Mum tells a story of him leaving her in labour to go play a squash game. But I believe he made it back just in time. So it wasn't all bad. And then there was the two of us. And then along came Makushla. So this photograph is actually taken outside here. This was when we moved into this house. So just short of 50 years ago, we've been living here. And then Dad started raising a family, doing the family thing. So again, I've cropped it up. Oh, maybe not enough. Again, downstairs, anybody who knows this house will recognise it's not much has changed in all these years. And the family grew. This was us, a little bit older. And then Dad started building the pool that you see outside. So this was a pool totally of Dad's own design, of his mind. Had to actually buttress the hill up at the back, and purposefully made a long shelf along the side here so that children would be able to swim safely in the pool and not fall in and drown. And built this step here similarly to enable young children to play in a pool and not have the worry of a deep end that people could potentially drown in. And the pool became a big part of our lives, as did dogs become a big part of our lives. We have dogs, Callum has dogs, still have dogs. This was one of our first favourites, good old-fashioned 70s phone there. And Makushla as well, by the pool. So I suspect this ability to have a pool and the ability to learn how to swim helped Callum and I learn how to swim, and as a result, hey, you get a head start on it. Like Tiger Woods started hitting that ball at 3, and Callum apparently learned how to swim at 2. And we started to learn how to swim, and Dad was heavily involved in it and encouraged it. And this was my first age group swimming tour for Zimbabwe. So Dad was the manager, and this is me as a young boy. And, well, to people who are swimmers in the room, you're all too familiar with the life of a swimming parent and walking up and down side of swimming pools and all the rest of it. Here's Mum, in fact. I don't know if she's going to punch him there, but but it does look a little bit ominous. Personally, my swimming career culminated in going to the Olympics, and Dad was the only person really who was proud of me getting disqualified for a single false start. He took a very long-term historic view on it, and he said, "You will be the only person in history to have got disqualified for a single false start. Nobody can do it again. You are the one."
Congratulations.
Thank you. But even many years later, I decided to swim the English Channel, and Dad came along to Portobello in Edinburgh. And even then, he couldn't break the habit of walking up and down the coastline looking for me. Sarah said he just couldn't stop looking for you. He was up and down with his stick. So Callum and I went off to boarding school. We went off to Rizawi. It was a big decision for my father. He himself had gone to boarding school and said that he didn't want his kids going to boarding school. But the way the cookie crumbled, it turned out Rosawi was meant to be the best place, and it certainly agreed with me and Callum. I had a great time there. Mum was a bit sad to see us go. Another big part of our lives growing up with Dad and Mum was holidays. So we went on holidays, local holidays, skiing holidays. Callum was known as the Red Bomber. I think this was one up at Troutbeck that we went up to. So Mauritius. Dad got so enamored by a catamaran in Mauritius that he went out to Lake Trevero and bought a catamaran, which was a total disaster. Callum and I spent our lives on those pontoons with no wind paddling us in and out of shore. I think the best holidays were Mtepa up in Kariba. We went up there several times and had many good times. Dad's penchant for keeping his swimming costume for many, many years did serve to timestamp him somewhat. Looking good, Dad. Still got it going on. Hey, I think he understands. He's like, hey, look, here we go. Yeah. Don't Callum and I know it. Especially Callum. But then we started growing up, and it was time to start heading off to university. Stressed Dad out, not a good time, a lot of tension in the house. Callum did his part. He graduated. Unfortunately, I never made it to graduation. I took a leave of absence. I didn't fail. Leave of absence. And then Father and I went 50-50 on my first business. I had a business idea. I was naive. I thought I'll start it in 3 months, get it going in 6. I'm going to return to Cape Town in 3 with money. People said, you'll never return to university. And I was like, you crazy. I love university. I'm coming back. Took a year to start, 2 years to get going. But this is our first menus. So this was actually Dad's expression. Have a night out at home was his idea. We then went into partnership with Inscore, and then we sold the business to Inscore when Inscore listed. And dial delivery is still going to this day. I see it on the way out to the airport. Here we are, 30 years later. The business is still going. Dad had the fortunate to live a long life. So he got to see the Springboks win 4, 5. I don't know, just lose count, so many.
You lose count.
4 World Cups there. He also, one of the great sadnesses with my mother was she never got to see us get married, which my father did. So this is Callum, his wedding. You can trust me, he's wearing trainers. And then Sarah and I's wedding as well. We managed to get him into a kilt for that. Callum had just worked out he'd lost his best man speech. So he was starting to stress out a little bit at that point. Always one loving to be surrounded by pretty girls. That was Dad's WhatsApp profile pic for the next 5 years. And then he got the opportunity as well, something that is a regret of mine with Mother not seeing it, but for us to then not only get married, but go on and have children, and Dad start to see the family life, become a grandfather, run the full circle. This was Christmas but one ago. It looks like only me and him are participating in the... I know. Yeah, okay. And there again, happy. This photo is actually just from this very last Christmas, which was really the last trip that I had home with Dad. I see he's wearing the crown again. But we decided here something different. We decided there's too much pressure Christmas Day, so we kind of bucked the trend and we had Christmas Day before Christmas Day, where we could have it at home and have the help, not be a public holiday. And yes, he had said that this was how he wanted to do it from here on out. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be his last one. In the back here, there's flame lilies, and I just thought I'd use that as an opportunity to show a picture of his loved flame lilies, which John helped with. He was forever proud of these flame lilies. He would send us pictures, keeping us updated on their progress. And in closing, I don't think any talk about my father and his life would be complete without mentioning his McGown life letters and his life and limbs letters. We are streaming the event, and I spent time yesterday sending out to all of the recipients of his letters, the link to it. And I really was shocked by the response that I got from so many people, and I must thank them all, saying, we really enjoyed his letters, and it's going to be sadly missed. So, unfortunately, I know we probably didn't publicize what had happened to Dad as much as we possibly should have. Dad on a Saturday night was trying to maneuver the stairs with a cooler bag and a crutch, and slipped and fell down the stairs. Unfortunately, the timing was bad. It was a Saturday night, so Itai wasn't coming in on a Sunday morning, and only John, noticing the dog had not been fed and other things, found him Sunday night. So everything was done that could be done. We had 3 brain operations, and eventually decided to set up this room as an ICU ward, where he could have the view out. If people stay till later, you'll see the amazing view that there is of the sunset. And this is how we had it set up for Dad in his final 10 days of life. And unfortunately, he didn't pull through. But Dad, we're all going to miss you. Your humor, your quick laugh, your unbelievable intellect. He really did have a memory like an encyclopedia. It was almost a game. Test him, see if he's got it right. And invariably he got it right. How's that pronounced? What does that mean? You know, it's sometimes quicker to call him than to Google it.
Yeah, it was.
And he got it right. His letters will be missed. Him being green on Skype will be missed. His FaceTimes will be missed. We'll miss you, Dad. We'll miss you. Okay, that's me.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, Rory.
Huh?
He hasn't lost his speech.
A good friend of my father's, David Aitken, I asked him if he would write something for Dad for this day. And any of you who know David Aitken know he's an extremely eloquent, quick-witted man who appreciated my dad's humor and all that he did. And this is what David wrote for today. We gather today on this saddening day to pay tribute and honor a big man in every way. From Scottish roots, which he held so dear, to this home that he loved throughout his career. A leader in his field, far ahead of his time, he was badly let down and accused of crime. From the peak of good living at his beloved home, suddenly incarcerated, no more to roam. He bore it with humor and embraced those he met, went from humble Muzukuru to Chika's vet. Initial suspicion of this high mighty white gave way to respect in their common plight. In all that he did, before and after this disaster, his family came forth first, a supportive, loving master. He extended his help in some harebrained schemes, ever supported of their ambitious dreams. When they needed his help, he would fly to their side, and practical aid would happily provide. Sometimes abrasive, you knew where you stood, didn't suffer fools gladly, corrected where he could. A man of Mensa, a deluxe model brain, he devoted his life to alleviate pain. He embraced modern media and enjoyed it to the full, authored Zim Life for years, a useful tool. For the diaspora scattered across the world, his words were nostalgia, memories unfurled. Dining out on steak, you better show care. When he says he likes it really rare, he means really rare. Always good humour, a fan of Athelbros, served with a toasty, no higher pleasure he knows. Missed forever, his memories will endure. To know him as I did was a pleasure for sure.
Well done, David.
Thank you, David. Yeah. According to an old African proverb, when an old man dies, a library burns to the ground. With the death of our precious father, Richard Gladwell McGown, an entire university is burnt to the ground. He was an only child, born in Shillong, a British protectorate in India, in 1936 on a tea estate where his father worked as an engineer. He was sent to Britain in 1939, before World War II broke out, to live with his uncle and aunt, and started at Eastwood Secondary School, going on to complete his schooling at Glasgow Academy. He did not care much for boarding school, and he spoke little of it, except for the rules and food that he detested. His crowning achievement came when, at the age of 13, he won a poetry prize for finishing second in the school's poetry competition, committing to memory 1,365 lines of poetry, most of which he could still recite right up until his fall. In 1953, he started his studies in medicine at Edinburgh University, graduating 6 years later in 1959 with an MBCHB. After working as house surgeon and house physician at Southlands Hospital, Sussex, and senior house officer at the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh, he decided that general practice was not for him. So in 1962, the studies to become a specialist anaesthetist began. He worked as junior anaesthetist at University Hospital Uppsala, Sweden, for 2 years, becoming the registrar anaesthetist at Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh in 1965, and after passing his finalist specialist qualification in 1966, he ended up as senior house officer in medicine at the Eastern General Hospital, Edinburgh, a year later. In 1968, driven by his sense of adventure and lured by the better remuneration offered to those prepared to work in the colonies, he took a job as the locum specialist anaesthetist at Nkana Mine Hospital in Kitwe, Zambia. There, at the side of the pool of the Kitwe Central Hospital, whilst bronzing his body in the African sun and listening to classical music on his gramophone, he observed a svelte, sophisticated, and sexy nurse. She approached him as the pool supervisor and commanded that if he had Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto, he could stay. If not, he was to leave. Fortunately for us children, he was able to play our mother's requests, was allowed to stay, and they ended up marrying in 1972. After 4 months in Kitwe, a friend that he made whilst working at the Royal Infirmary in Edinburgh, and one of his lifelong best friends, Dick Kahi, offered him a job as consultant anaesthetist at Harare Hospital, Salisbury, in 1968. Thinking that he would work just for a few months until the flat that he owned in Edinburgh was available for him to occupy, he moved up to Salisbury and fell in love with its sunshine, endless blue skies, and its people. His love for Zimbabwe was deep, and despite the legal travails he faced in the 90s, he never for a moment considered leaving and moving back to the sanctuary of Britain. Dad loved the way of life of Zimbabweans and the lifestyle Zimbabwe presented. He loved the hospitable, fun-loving people and viewed it as a great place to bring up children. When what he regarded as his life's greatest piece of good fortune happened, and he was able to buy 60 Ridge Road, he personally designed the swimming pool with a large play area in the shallow end and a ledge along its length for the enjoyment and safety of kids. He just loved children. He viewed having them like standing in a church with beautiful stained glass windows. He said, "You've got to be inside to appreciate the beauty." He regarded siring children as the most valuable thing he did in his life. Latterly, it was his grandchildren that brought him immeasurable joy. And he would sit on the veranda when the family came for lunch and watched them playing in the pool with an endless and unmovable smile on his face. Dad loved his sport and watching it on the TV. MotoGP, tennis and rugby were his favourites. Let's hope for his sake that Carlos Alcaraz, his famous modern-day tennis player, wins today. That would make his day. He loved reading and writing, what he modestly described as his scribbles, his Life in Zim and McGown Life letters, which became widely published on various platforms and for which he will be best remembered by many. He never held back in expressing his views, especially those on what he referred to as his heart's abhorrence, Donald Trump, and would gladly defend his position and stand corrected if he was proved wrong. He was a deep thinker and a man of staggering intellect. He would often sit and tell us tales of his school and university days, able to remember specific incidents with amazing clarity and detail, remembering people's names and the years in which things happened, whereas Rory and I can barely remember what we did last week. He took interest in everything from nature and the universe to politics and the advances in modern technology, which he marveled at and did his best to embrace. As alluded to earlier, he could remember and recite most of the 1,365 lines of poetry that he learned in order to win the poetry prize at age 13, and would often tell me how he woke up with the lines of a certain poem in his mind and then go on to recite the entire poem verbatim to me. I quote quite aptly from one of his letters. Talking to Callum, I was staggered to find out that he wasn't taught Gray's Eulogy in a country churchyard at school. What was I paying all that money for? In the dusty archive of my mind are the opening lines from that poem, which I learned for the Poetry Prize 70 years ago. I can still remember a few, the opening lines. The curfew tolls, the knell of parting day, the lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lea. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way and leaves the world to darkness and to me. Now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight, and all the air a solemn stillness holds, save where the beetle wheels his droning flight, and drowsy tinklings lull the distant folds. That last line is magic. How could they still not be teaching that? I will miss our daily lunches together, our conversations, his stories, and all the worldly wisdom that he would impart to me. I will miss his jokes and his laugh and his sayings that will forever be etched in my mind. I'm privileged to have had him as my dad and to have been able to spend his last years close to him and to have shared them with him. I will miss you, Dad, and thank you for everything.
Well done, Callum.
Sorry, there's just one thing with reference to my dad's deep love for Zimbabwe that I'd like to play to you, if Sarah's able to. Because it was his favourite advert of all time.
Zimbabwe, you are beautiful. Take the road, take the road, that's the road home, and that's what I want. I'll follow it to the place where I'm from. Zimbabwe, you are beautiful. Take the road, take the road, that's the road home, and that's what I want. I'll follow it to the place where I'm from. Zimbabwe, you are beautiful. Take the road, take the road.
Right, guys, that's everything. So
Please
please
join us for the drinks.
have the stuff and drinks and enjoy.
No, I wouldn't recognize the face, but I recognize the name.
Rory, great. It's been a long, long time. Condolences.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful way. Beautiful, beautiful ceremony. Shows you very well. A couple of decades.
I like the younger man picture.
But yeah,
Very well
beautiful
spoken.
ceremony. Yeah.
Fraser.
We are partners in crime, in divorce sometimes. And we used to, we broke bread occasionally with the dad as Sharon parents. He wasn't a Sharon parent. Were you guys at Sharon?
No, we were with all my sister was at Sharon.
There was a link with the balls and there's well.
Right. Yeah, no, my sister.
I was saying to my wife that God meant you to smoke. You're going to put a chimney in your head. And you must smoke very, very well.
We got brought up with smoking as a dirty, dopey, disgusting anti-social habit.
Is that going to change or was that stop?
No, that stops. We should have got
I'm like you. I've got two ones along with as well.
It's very good rotation. I could probably have a go at it. Yeah, I just need to put it on thing. I think we'll see what they've done with the filming, with the streaming. And I've said to be sure that there's nothing worse when they've got a camera. So it's now that we're sort of a lot. So we're usually seeing the streaming. So that could be available for 1995. Yeah, it's
May I ask where you're working?
I don't remember. During, we go into gyms and we attach a little wireless sensors or the gym, and then we use that data to help operate refurbishment, to understand what the most efficient mix of equipment should be. So essentially what the capacity should be to match the mileage. I'll be honest with you, I learned it all from in school, so I saw the business in school. in school they taught me how to use historical data to forget what sort of happened. And I'd rather pizza and chain. And they predict how many half chicken will get sold in large time. A month out.
They're quite a bunch.
And I basically just really used everything in school to talk me. So those people.
We must discuss that communal life question you'll ask me later. Yes. I was in bed for 3 weeks. I didn't get a chance. I'm fine now, so don't worry. We must discuss that question you raised in relation to a disease. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks.
Very nice, boys. Very nice. Callum and Rory. Hey, Rory! Huh? Well done. Yes, you as well. I don't think I could have people, but Rory and Rory.
Let you go away. Oh, right, you. This is your sister.
Get your meals.
Yeah.
Wine man. You were there with the boys. You were there with the boys. I can't believe it.
Good.